You're watching the Go Crying to Walk In podcast. I'm Chef Cholo, and you already know, as usual, we are powered by Hospitality News Magazine and Hospitality News Magazine Online. Today, my guest is Steve Chassman. He's the Executive Director for the Long Island Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence. Wow. You know, talking to a chef, I think we're in the right neighborhood, right, Steve? How you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thank you for hosting me today.
Oh, thanks a lot. You know, spending my whole life in this industry, going to college, I most of my younger life was, surrounded on when we were going to go buy the beer or when we were going to hit the liquor store and how much we were going to drink and could we wake up the next morning. And, that kind of lifestyle just doesn't translate into a long life. And thank God for me, I found myself the way out of it. But I know a lot of chefs, they need help, they need assistance, they need someone to talk to. And our lives are so busy and we're moving so much. And there's these pressures. As a younger person running a restaurant, I transitioned from the kitchen and became like a general manager at one point in my career. And, you're hanging around a bar talking to people and, they want to have a drink with you. You want to have a drink with them. And next thing you know, you had 7 drinks and, then you need cocaine to have another drink. And it becomes a really horrible, horrible cycle. And tell me a little bit about how, you got in. Did you know that this industry was something important? Did this kind of just fall on you, or did you have experience in the industry or anything like that?
Well, first of all, I'm a mental health professional for 30 years. So every sector of life, from physicians to lawyers to social workers themselves, but certainly the restaurant industry. And, the old saying, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, literally originated in the pressure cooker of what it is to run a restaurant, a kitchen, the food service industry. Listen, I think there's every occupation comes an occupational hazard.
Right.
So some of the things that you mentioned, it is a high pressure job. I think there's a sacred trust that the general public has with restaurants or with the food service industry that we're leaving our cluttered and busy lives to come to your establishment to seek refuge from our life woes.
It's like Zen. Yeah.
It's Zen. So this is a sacred trust that patrons have in a restaurant.
I never thought about it like that.
And you are providing, a great spiritualist once said, love people and feed them. And you probably do both of that. And the title chef means a whole lot to someone like me. It means you're an artist. It means you're a giver. It means you're a culinary expert. It also means you're a manager or an organizer for men and women that are working in your kitchen.
Gotta be.
And obviously you want to perform well as an artisan. You want to perform well in providing the experience that people who are coming to the restaurant so they can have that respite from their busy lives. So that's a great pressure.
The best chefs are like, your dad. We use the word family in our industry, on and on and on, where it's like, when we talk about food, it's family meal. When we're going through the walk-ins and food is left over or here and there, it's like, save this for family, save this for family. And then at the end of the day, you say to yourself, you talk to one of your sous chefs and, how did the family perform tonight? How was this and that? So, if you, by making people feel good about who they are, and the food, it just reflects that. My first job, one of my last jobs, I ran Crust Hollow Country Club, and, it was known as the home of the rubber chicken. You know what I mean? It was like, it was a big food factory. Right. And when I went in there, we slowly changed things around, and we started to make, again, there's people that are at Crest Hollow in your industry that it could be there 3 times a week. We spoke about Jeff Reynolds, and I've known Jeff for 100 years, but I would see Jeff 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. And then a guy like Jeff would be someone to say, you know what, Chef, the food really changed here. Yeah. And it wasn't like I bought different chicken from another planet, but I made the people that worked there feel good about who they were and kind of changed the culture. And excluding drugs and alcohol from that world starts to make people feel better. Do you agree?
Well, listen, it's not what drugs, including alcohol, people use. It's why they use them. And keep in mind, don't think anyone supports substance users like LICADD does. I mean, we're around for 68 years, since 1956. So
is that right?
This is not an ethical or moral failing. People work really hard. Here we are. We're not even going to go in the past, but we're pretty much 4 years since COVID. And what did restaurants and restaurant workers need to do to remain open, to give people that experience? So I think what was already a stressful job has really focused on customer service, and people are looking, your workers, chefs themselves, restaurant workers are looking for relief. And because there is a free flow of alcohol, because, and this is not an indictment of the industry, drugs like stimulants or amphetamines have been rife in the industry for as long as the industry has been around.
Well, if you want to drink for a long time, you need something to help that go along.
And listen, we all know people that either started out in the restaurant industry who have progressed along to your status of chef. And, this is a slippery slope that becomes an occupational hazard in many fields, but particularly the restaurant industry. So the good news is that, people like yourself, and we certainly know Hospitality News wants to let people know that there's nothing wrong with asking for help from your owner, from your manager. If you find yourself over that imaginary line where I'm having a couple of drinks to relax, I can't relax without alcohol. Right. I'm using stimulants to get through the day. I can't get through the day without stimulants. Right. That's a huge demarcation line, and you may have slipped into what is a bona fide psychiatric condition called alcohol use disorder. And we're here to tell you that there's help out there, that managers need to empathize, because we're all fallible. We're human beings. This is a high-stress situation. It's how we manage stress that makes the difference.
Now, are you like an AA, like a STEP program, or it's a different thing? Like, you're dealing with people's mental health. Like, how do you guys handle this? Like, what kind of, like, say I was, say I had some guys that work for me and I felt like, we're really great workers and we're maybe heading into that direction, and I reached out. What would happen to a guy like that? How would he get help?
Well, that's a great question. And LICADD, one of the arms of LICADD is we have an employee assistance program. So we work with people, contracts all over Long Island, from unions to school districts, some restaurants. And listen, we meet it with empathy and compassion. You know what the turnover rate is in the industry. You know that it takes time, energy, and money to retrain people when people dip out. So it's actually not only a good empathetic support system to support your employee who may have found themselves over the line with alcohol and or other drugs. Right. We would engage them and give them healthier options for supports, give them counseling. Again, it's not what people drink or drug, it's why they're doing it.
Right.
And people self-medicate a whole bunch of stuff, including stress and anxiety. So it's not only good for the individual employee, it's also good for the restaurant or for the organization. It shows great support that this is an occupational hazard of our industry, and it is of many industries. And we want to support our employees that if you find yourself over the line and your job performance is suffering, we want to offer you some support in counseling and an opportunity to get well and come back and work at the restaurant, because a good kitchen, a good restaurant is a well-oiled machine.
It's the only way it works.
And it's been compared to like a good sailing ship. You're the captain as the chef, but even the swab, even the bus gentlemen or ladies, they have a very unique function and they are an intricate part of the team. So everyone's important. And if people aren't performing well, the question is, what is impeding their performance? If it's drugs, including alcohol, we have some solutions to get that person better, get them well, healthier coping strategies, and hopefully right back to work.
It's funny how alcohol was like, it's like normal, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't drink, you don't have a drink, there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. And I think you said a minute ago, we as people who run restaurants, we'll do anything for a guy that's really worth it for us. We get a guy, like you just said, we train a guy, we go through the process, and he works for us for a little bit of time, and then it comes out as he gets comfortable with you that maybe he has some dependency issues, and now you don't want to go through the process, like you said, of retraining. So, it's a great thing to hear that you have this ability. I mean, we'll do anything. We'll, as a restaurant owner, we'll go bail a guy out of jail if he gets a DUI. Right. We'll go, we'll lend him money. We'll get him cab fare home if he doesn't have a car. Right. We'll jump through 1,000 hoops to make sure we don't have to get another employee in that spot. And hearing about this program is awesome. So is it like people are in a group? Is it one-on-one? Like what kind of
one-on-one,
how does
family,
it work?
group? We can refer to detoxes and inpatients. But most importantly, Chef Chris, is that this is an intricate, valued member of the team. Keep in mind, substance users, alcohol users are not bad people.
No.
Sometimes they make really unhealthy choices.
Some of our heroes.
And some of those...
Anthony Bourdain, guys like that,
Yes, and we're not going to single anyone out specifically, but this is rife with any industry. So I think we've come a long way in 2024. Alcohol is still the most widely used and accepted drug in America.
I just read cannabis is rising over alcohol.
Well, that's because of the legalization and commercialization. But as a chef,
tangible.
But as a chef, listen, I don't care if you work in the airline industry or the food industry. When you're at work, the expectation is that you're going to be focused and you're going to help us work as a team so we can provide the best experience for our patrons that are coming here to have a good food experience. So, and listen, some people can't control it once they get to the obsession and compulsion around substance use. So asking for help and more importantly, having a culture at a restaurant that it's okay to ask for help from your manager, from your owner, from your chef and say, hey, I find myself struggling with this. And also to have a culture that says, hey, this is an occupational hazard of the industry we've chosen. We want to educate people and make people aware that there is help out there.
It's funny because, when we build a restaurant, we put together these handbooks, you know what I mean? And we try and put as much information into this book that we can for a new employee. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be an awesome idea, and I want restaurant guys to kind of pay attention to this. Quite possibly some of the language that we put into these things should include, listen, if you're feeling a certain way or you're feeling like dependency is becoming a part of your life, talk to us as your leaders, as your dad, as your uncle. I tell anytime I hire a guy as a chef for one of our properties, I say, listen, you're here because you know how to cook. I don't ask someone to, like a lot of chefs will go in and they have to do like a cooking demo. I don't play like that. I mean, if you've been doing this 10 years, I know you know how to cook. But do you know how to be a father? Do you know how to be an uncle? Do you know how to be a guy that somebody could lean on? And if we could let them know in the beginning that if you needed to lean on me about any kind of issues you're having dependency-wise, I'm here for that. And to have a group like you to be able to push them to, I think is really, really special and a good point. You know what I mean?
And listen, this is a byproduct of alcohol use disorder, but, again, people are not bad people, but the first thing to go under the weight of alcohol use disorder is their sense of integrity, their sense of dignity, their work ethic. There's an old saying, not every time people are drinking do they get in trouble, but every time they get in trouble, does alcohol play a role in that?
Always.
And not everyone wants to be the best version of themselves. Certainly in 2024, we know more in America, in every industry, about self-medication, about trying to treat or anxiety or fear or depression. I mean, we're coming out of the worst pandemic 4 years ago. We all got an adult dose of change.
Yeah.
And I think the restaurant industry, like every other industry, is reinventing itself.
Have to.
And how we reinvent ourselves means we can meet substance use disorder with empathy and compassion. We could be supportive of our employees, and we can, if people are asking for help, hopefully provide it because A, they're human beings and deserve it, and B, every member of the restaurant team is a valued member.
Wow. Well, Steve, thanks for taking some time and hanging out in the Go Crying the Walk-In podcast today. And remember, if you're out there and you need help, there's help to be had, but you got to speak up and you got to tell your brother, tell your friend, tell your chef. And always remember that you're watching the Go Crying the Walk-In podcast. I'm Chef Cholo, and you already know. Steve, thanks a lot, brother.
Thank you, Chef.
All right, man.